Cool. Welcome back to another episode of Prop Sessions. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, Matt Giggs on today. He doesn't really need much of an introduction for you guys listening to this. Matt, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you on, sir.
You're welcome. It's nice to see you. How you doing?
You know what? I'm doing good. And straight away, one of the things that just came to me is when we first connected a while back, you were very, very kind and gave me a really nice compliment about saying about my energy, right? And that really, I don't know about you, but you know, if you get compliments from people, it's always lovely to receive a compliment. But that really, really hit home with me because it actually meant a lot to me. And it's nice that I can say the exact same thing about you. Like you can feel that energy, and when the energy is really good and it's expansive, it just puts a smile on your face, you know, and I can feel that from you as well. So I want to start by returning that compliment to you.
Thank you. That's nice of you to say. This is a good start, I must say. I quite like the start of this. Fantastic. But no, seriously, man, I think, a lot of people are very judgy these days and, in a negative sense, everyone's being, conditioned to divide the nation for different subjects, albeit what. But I don't know, it's just, for me, just tell people what you see in them, what good. And compliments are nice to give as well as receive. So
yeah, and I can tell that from you that you look for that good as well. You know what I mean? Where does that actually come from for you? Because I know that that's something, I know that a lot goes into that. You're not necessarily just born with these spectacles on that have this nice little gold tint, right? That can be something that could be honed. Where does that come from?
Well, it's weird because growing up, my mum was like a Champions League warrior. She worried. And it kind of rubbed off on me. And I mean, by the way, I love my mum to bits and I wouldn't change her for the world. But I definitely grew up in an environment where it was, we weren't necessarily what I'd consider to be a positive thinking. It wasn't a positive thinking environment as such. It was a lovely environment, loving environment, but it wasn't a positive outlook environment. And then obviously you kind of go through school and everything else. You surround yourself with Mickey takers. You're included in that bunch and you're constantly hammering each other, taking the Mickey out of each other. Then you go through a situation which is life-changing where you lose a close member of your family. And then you go into coping. Next thing you know, you have a really dim view on life and you find yourself in this dark hole. And coming out of the dark hole was probably where I started to find out who I really was. Peeling back the layers, you've got no options. There's only, you either stay down or you get up. And getting up was about working on myself. It was starting to look at what can I do? What can I focus on? Why do I need to look too far back? Why do I need to even look too far forward? It was about looking at things differently and changing the way I looked at things. And I think, I think there's a lot of quotes out there that resonate to that. But for me, it was, if my life was going to change, I had to change. And so I did. I stopped worrying about things too much. I started to take control of my thoughts, and that's a training exercise. It's not an overnight. I still have it now. I just said to you before we came on, I had that sleepless night, and that sleepless night wasn't necessarily because I was worrying about loads of stuff, but I was totally focused on not getting to sleep. So, it's the same thing. You get what you focus on. And, I believe that, that's what I choose to focus on. I choose to look at what can I do? What can I work on? How can I be? Who do I want to become? What have I got? What am I grateful for? When you have your dip days and you're having your low moments, that's what I now look at as a learning moment rather than a low. It's like, right, I need to learn a bit more about this situation that I'm in and actually, calibrate by focusing what I've got in my life, what am I grateful for. So it's just training. It's totally not natural. Like you said, we're all born with scarcity and security. So you have to out-train your brain.
I love what you said about those low moments when it happens, a trigger happens, something frustrating, something puts you into scarcity. But what really interested me about the way you explained that was, having a low moment, what can I learn here? And that frequency of curiosity is very different to what normal first instinct action might be, right? And what's that like when you're at, because let's face it, like these moments can come up a lot, right?
I had one Monday. I had a great day. I'd gone out and I didn't have a lot to be down about, if I'm being honest. I just felt low. I went and saw a great guy over at Wentworth. He treated me for lunch. It was, it was amazing. I drove back and just felt a bit, one of those. And then I thought to myself, what have I taught myself here? That is, Jesus Christ, what have I got today? Who am I today? Where am I going today? Just reminding yourself of where you're really at, and it's teaching yourself to actually take those moments and just accept that they are what they are. Don't fight them. It is just a part of it. You can't constantly be up there. You have to, I certainly say I used to have bad years, then it became bad months, and then it was low weeks, and then it was low days. Now I just train myself to kind of recognize that there's a reason why I feel like that. That one was because I drunk 5 or 6 days in a row, because I had like 9 or 10 days holiday. I'd had a gin and tonic every night and a glass of red here and there, and I had a few more than I needed to on the Sunday. And it does, alcohol makes you feel a bit shitty, and I think that was all it was. And I just thought, you know what, it is what it is. I am where I am. Actually, man, I've just been to Wentworth to meet a guy who's really inspiring, who I can learn from. I've just had 2 great calls with 2 of my team. I've just had a great message from a client. I've got 3 beautiful kids. You start reeling it off and you're thinking, have a word with yourself. Do you know what I mean? And it's just trying to remind yourself of what you've got and who you are, and moving on from there. But being cool with it's the first thing, right?
Yeah, it's that acceptance, right? It's just first of all being like you said, well, I feel like this right now, and that's okay. It's okay to feel like that, and then it's from that state shifting it, right? Like I know even just before this, had a new client who said they want to sign up. Fantastic, celebrations, great. But then 9 seconds later, I get a message, something else that's not even negative, but just something that I didn't want to read right now. And then that's what my focus is on, right? And then it's like, wait a minute, even just from being on here with you for a couple of minutes, it's like, yeah, actually, what about that? And the other 17 things that were fantastic that just happened before that.
But we are so conditioned by 24-hour news environments sometimes to focus on what we haven't got, to focus on that person and wish I was like them, and so on and so forth. And actually, do you know what? We've all got unique talents, gifts. We've got so many things in our own lives that we can be totally grateful for. One of them is the fact that we are here right now. And, it's cool to have those thoughts. I think, do you know what? One of the things I've learned in the last 12, 18 months with so many challenges and changes is the fact that actually I'm all right with challenges. I'm all right with changes. I'm all right with situations. In fact, the more I get, the better I become. So actually the dips and the lows are actually part of my training and my growth. And you just got to try and be strong with your perspective.
So as you were saying that about how actually lucky we are to be here. I haven't really said this very publicly, but a couple of weeks ago, I had my first experience with plant medicine. So I was at a ceremony, and one of the things that really came up for me, for those of you who don't know what it is, I'm not going to go into it now. Have a quick Google. It's a lot to explain, but essentially what I realized was at the ceremony, and the message I received was this lack of self-worth, and actually not having, and this is something I had no idea about consciously. I thought, yeah, I'm great. All these things are going on, but actually really deep down inside, once all the armor was stripped off, there was this feeling of lack of self-worth. And after sharing this with the shaman, who's the person who basically kind of takes care of everybody, he just said to me, you are an impossibility. The chances of you actually being here are next to zero, genuinely. And just for that alone is so much to be grateful for. And that in itself is enough to be more than worthy for, and it's a real reminder just how lucky we are to actually be here. And it's like, great, you can say that and you can hear that, but actually embodying that gratitude. And this is what I've learned. Like, we hear all these things and there's so much great content out there. That's great. Sorry, go ahead.
No, do you know, oh man, that hits home. And I'll tell you why. It takes most people a life-threatening experience or a situation that's really bad to shape people into being more grateful about their life. And we are an impossibility, and that's a really cool way of looking at it. And it totally is that. And you know, let's be honest, we're not here forever. We're here once. I know you're going to hear that time and time again, but for fuck's sake, you know, let's make the most of it. Let's do the things that scare us the most. Let's get out of our comfort zone. You know, most of us don't know what we don't know. You know, I'm working on some passion projects now because I'm thinking I'm 45, 46 this year. In my head, I'm half time in life. You know, I'm at half time. I'm off the field. I'm in the dressing room. I'm coaching myself saying, you've had a decent first half, you know. First 20 minutes, you're a bit all over the place. Second 25, you've done really well. Well done. But we do have there's a lot of challenges around self-worth. And that's down to so many different factors. And I think, you know, I do think things like guided meditation, or looking at certainly, you know, looking at your strengths and looking at what you've got and who you are. And sometimes you have to go out of yourself to do this, because let's be honest, if you go to your family and say, what do you love about me? They're going to lie to you, and so on and so forth. And, you know, anyone tells you what you want to hear. But there will be people that you know around you that will be able to give you some feedback that you need to hear. One of the things is we're so great to our best friends. We big them up, we empower them, we give them the strengths, but we don't give ourselves the same level of respect. And you need to be best mates with yourself. You need to look in the mirror and say, look, do you know what? That's the person I need to be honest with. That's the person I need to remind and be a great person to first.
That really, really hits home with me. And I know that's true, has been true for myself. To be honest, even now, it's still stuff I'm shifting through. It's so much easier to be there for somebody else, or sacrifice for somebody else, or help somebody else. But, you know, what about this person first? You know, they say to put on your, you know, to put on your oxygen mask when it falls down on a plane on yourself first, for a reason. You're useless otherwise, to be able to help other people, right? And it's to me, the big reason why that comes down to self-worth. That's what it's been for me, you know. And it's just such a powerful reminder to always put yourself first. And when I first heard that, I thought that sounds a bit selfish, and in some ways it is. But
people get confused with selfishness and actually self-love, self-care, self-acknowledgement.
Yes,
it's not selfish. You kids grow up and they really do have a good opinion about themselves, and they are confident in who they are and their uniquenesses and their gifts and their skills. You don't call them arrogant. You don't call them selfish. You pat them on the back, you send them on their way and say, carry on being who you are, being your best, right? We've got a bit of a condition going on in this country. This country's not helped itself. We love the underdog. We love playing victim. We love going down the road of, you know, woe is me, and, you know, misery loves company, birds of a feather flock together. It's the same shit. Listen, it's a choice. It's a choice. Learning to love yourself is a skill we have to learn. And actually, it's a skill that we should be teaching kids at school. What are your talents? What are your strengths? How do you deal with this? Teaching resilience, giving people the tools and the techniques to understand why they think in a certain way. And actually, it's all right to have a shit day. It's all right to think badly. It's all right to think like this. It's all right to think like that. It's okay. First of all, don't try and fight it. It is part of life. It's around about you at the moment because of various situations. It could be because you've had 5 or 6 nights having a little cheeky gin and tonic and a glass of wine. It could be that you're smoking pot. It could be that you've just burnt yourself out with work. And it could be that your best mate, really, really down treads you. You know, it could be that people just don't believe in you, that you've got the wrong environments. You know, there's so many factors. Most important thing is when you create awareness, you can see it clearer. And that's going back to personal development, is about your development. If you radiate, if you believe in yourself, more people will believe in you, and you'll have that ripple effect. And, you know, when I realized that the effect I was having by saying, why us, why me, my parents, they didn't deserve to lose a son, and, you know, I'd blame the world, drink, and spend my time in the pub talking to people that wanted to talk about things that we couldn't control and how bad the world was and what work was this and da 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 da. Man, I was working in a factory, walking out of a factory age of, you know, 19, quitting in an afternoon just because I didn't like the guy. And I realized that it probably was the fact that factory life wasn't for me, if I'm being brutally honest. But I was so unhappy. I was so unhappy with myself. That was what it was. I looked in the mirror, didn't like what I'd seen. You know, I looked at myself with the wrong lens, the wrong perceptions. You know, we need to teach people to find their strengths at school. We need to teach people that they've got gifts, talents, skills, abilities that are unique. Nobody else has them. The same as the impossibility. You are special for who you are. And you know, wouldn't the world be a nicer place if more people did compliment each other, and actually, rather than wait for them to die and everyone starts posting how great they were, why don't you fucking tell them before they die, right? You know, I've just done a post about a guy, he's in his 70s, late 70s. Oh, I want to do a post now about him. I said, do you mind if I just stick this picture of you on LinkedIn? No, he goes, go ahead, no one will know me on there. You know, he's my mentor for 20 odd years. And I'm doing it not because I think he's going to snuff it next week. I'm doing it because he needs to know his impact he's had on my life. Why do I want to wait 10 years, 15 years when he does pass away and, you know, I'm at his funeral or whatever? You know, I think we make a big mistake in life of not telling people how we feel and not telling ourselves how great we are and what we're really, really good at. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it, with feelings, particularly for men. You know, if you're more masculine dominant, it's almost like feelings should be something that we should almost avoid, right? And it's almost like seen as something not for, you know, if you identify yourself as an entrepreneur or a business owner or whatever it is. And what I've realized is there's so much value in the feminine, in being able to feel, being able to receive, being able to experience gratitude, because that's actually what's magnetic at the end of the day. That's the things that attract things to you. And I don't know about you, but like I have friends who everything just seems to just happen for them. You know, it's like they're always in the right place at the right time. They've always got that great energy, and life just seems to deal them a good deck. And a lot of people would say, yeah, they're lucky. And sure, that's one way of looking at it. But what about if they're actually creating that themselves? What about if that energy is actually what's drawing, you know, things to them? And that's one thing I've learned is like, it is such a balance. Like for so long, I just spent time doing and doing and doing and having my, you know, this is how I'm going to get there. Because that's what I was taught at the end of the day. That's how I was educated through school, through college, through university. And ultimately, that was how I received love. Oh, you did well. You got your first, you got your 2-1 at university. Here, well done. There's your pat on the back. There's your love. Oh, you know, got this amazing promotion at work. Pat on your back. Here's your love. Here's your self-worth. And that was what a lot of it was built on. That self-worth, that self-love was received only in those times. And the challenge for me is being able to feel that self-love, even if I'm just sitting on the sofa doing absolutely nothing, you know. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on self-love, because it's something that just is kind of talked about a little bit, you know, on Instagram and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of misunderstood in a lot of ways. I'd love to hear your takes on how to actually hone that, because I think it's a real skill.
Yeah. Who's the easiest person to lie to?
Yourself.
Right. So, you know, the thing is, who are most people harder on? It's the same thing, you know, and actually it's about conditioning and reconditioning the way you think and trying to practice different things to help you to do so. You know, I've had therapy, I've gone away and done the Tony Robbins stuff. It's not because I want to be somebody else. It's because I want to discover who I really am. And I said to somebody yesterday, I said, you know, my biggest fear in life is not fulfilling my potential. And I said, at the moment, 90% of what goes in my diary at the moment is what I want in my diary, you know, and I feel like that's never been as good as it is today. Now, why is that? It's because I've built a team and I'm starting to trust people more around me. And I've learned from having great experiences as a leader and bad experiences as a leader. You know, you're constantly learning. And when you go through the bad experiences, your self-worth takes a a real dent. You know, you take the negativity and you swallow it up, because if you're someone who takes responsibility, you tend to carry everybody else's crap as well, because most of the people that are giving it because they don't take it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're dishing out the blame on you. You're a responsibility taker, going, do you know what? You know, I take responsibility for what's happened, or this situation and that situation. Yet all you're doing all the time is pushing your self-worth down, your self-love down. And actually, you've got to say, do you know, I'm a good person. And my biggest thing that I've had to learn, Ebbs, is to not give myself such a bloody hard time. I'm not a good enough dad. I'm not a good enough leader. I'm not a good enough friend. I'm not a good enough son. You know, because that's the story that I tell myself naturally. That's the story I tell myself naturally. How do you unconvert that, or how do you divert that? Is by reminding yourself of what you really are and who you really are and what impact you really have. And actually, going back to self-worth, if you be in yourself, it makes a big difference. You know, I saw a post out there, and there's no doubt in my earlier years of certainly stepping onto platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook and only really not having an absolute clue of what you're supposed to do. So I just shared what I thought. I gained more followers, more traction. You gain a lot more engagement. And then you try too hard. You start trying to be someone you're not, or you start to try and please the people or get the likes or get the validation. And then you start to lose the validation. You start to lose, and that's in yourself, because you're measuring your self-worth on the engagement that you get. And actually, that's just that's a dangerous game to play with as well. Happiness and it was, beauty beauty for me, right? I look at people who I admire the most. It's those who are you just know that they are totally happy with who they are. They don't really care. They care, but they don't really care about what other people think of them. And what I mean by that is they are just happy at giving out, being, doing the things that they feel are right for them at that moment in time in their life. And you have to work at self-love. You have to work at what it is you feel passionate about, but also not put yourself under this enormous pressure to know what your purpose is, or to know what your goals in life are, or you need to be here by that time and everything else. Sometimes you just got to be in a little bit more of a moment, like I am now with you, and actually coming onto a call and just think, I'm just looking forward to having a chat with you, not to build myself up over it, not to knock myself down if I said the wrong thing. You know, what comes out, it's supposed to be, and that's how life is.
I love that. And one of my favorite quotes, I think, is by Albert Einstein, is being yourself isn't the best way to influence other people. It's the only way, you know. And actually that really holds a lot of weight with me, because when somebody is really themselves and you can sense that in them, and that, like you say, you're not worried about slipping up or saying the right thing or how you're going to be perceived, then there's just so much resonance. And it's actually, for me, like the big learning point on this is saying, okay, well, it's okay if not everybody agrees with what I'm actually saying, and it's okay if people disagree, because at the end of the day, I'm just sharing what I believe is what I believe, right? I'm just sharing
and in the right environment, people will respect that. And equally, you respect being challenged as a leader. The more you get challenged by people who have got solutions to back up the challenges, the more respect you're gaining and around your peers. And I think, you totally. There's a quote that I have downstairs: "Beauty begins the moment you decide to be yourself." I think it's Coco Chanel, right? And you got to go, do you know what it is? There's nothing more beautiful than someone who really knows themselves.
Yeah.
There's nothing more ugly than somebody who is trying to be someone else. And that's the same when you're on a listing, right? And you're forced to do a presentation to someone and try and sell something that you don't believe in. That's why you don't win the listing, because you're coming across like an arse. You know, the moment you start asking questions that you believe are the right questions because you want to help someone to get to their outcome, it all starts to click into gear, you know. And it's the same what you said, that challenging a vendor because you feel it's the right thing to do. If it's the right thing to do and it's what you believe in, do it. You know, it's better that you do that than hide behind it and then get stuck a few months down the line. So it's the same with clients, isn't it? You have to sometimes decide that you can't work with everyone, and that's just another thing.
And when you're, you know, I'm guessing that like your teams are, you know, very fortunate to have somebody like you who's able to coach them and, you know, able to teach them and give your guidance of what you've learned along the way. You know, in estate agency right now, you know, there's a lot, let's face it, there's a lot of agents who are out there having to hit KPIs and under a lot of pressure to follow a system and follow a process, which sure, to some extent you always need. But what's your approach to that? You know, when with your teams, how do you coach them and mentor them in that sense?
So, you know, we've just been talking to Gemma about this today. She's my operations director. She's a coach to our directors, and she's just an amazing person to bring into our business because she is no nonsense. So I think people are a lot clearer today working for us than they probably were in the past. Let me just open the door for our dog. You know, what you say about the approach, it's really important to have an approach and some principles around the way you develop people in your business, because you can't build a great business if you don't build great people, right? So we just have to understand as a business, what does a great person for our business look like? Well, they've got to have certain values. They've got to believe in certain things the way that we wish it to be done. And they're the principles we need to have a shared vision around. Then when they come in, they need to have an expectation. And that needs to be clear: job description, behaviors, something that they grade themselves on with us now, rather than we tell them. You know, we have those shitty conversations where you say, I've got to be honest with you, Ebbs, you're not doing very well, are you, at the moment? It's not going very well, you know. And actually, there are very, very simplified ways of self-appraising in our business, which is definitely helping our culture develop. But we want them to work hard. We want them to have clear goals. We want them to understand that KPIs are important, but they're not the be-all and the end-all. They're just a measurement tool. And they're not there to beat them up. They're there to help them to come around things better. So we might need to develop skills. We might need to help them to build activities that are going to help them towards their KPIs. But for me, you know, you need to have a performance, which is the measurement part. That needs to be clear and expected. And then there has to be trust. Trust is about telling people how you feel. It's about having healthy conflict. It's all the stuff that you will see in certain models like Lencioni's principles and so on and so forth. But you want to have trust within a team. And that's the thing that we're constantly trying to develop. It's not perfect where we are. I am a passionate leader, but I've got a really great coach working for me now, and that's Gemma. And she's allowing me now to kind of work on the business a lot more. And she's working with my directors, and the directors are now developing the people. What used to happen, Ebbs, and the problem is Matt Giggs will come in and arc into the training. He'll be doing this. He'll come in, take that person out, and we'll do. And I'm trying to help loads of different people around the business. And my conversations, whilst they're great, if the director's not included in that conversation, or the manager of that person's not included in that conversation, you're building a bit of a dysfunctional organisation. That's kind of where we've been. It was great, and we've had some great times, and we've had a great journey. It's 9 years on Sunday since we opened the first business. And God, we're so different than 9 years ago. To some people, they would rather us be back probably to where it was at the beginning, where it was a tiny little team and everybody was in a certain place and it was, you know, da-da-da-da-da. But no, we're growing, and we want to grow with people that want to grow. You know, so establishing people's mindset is very easy now to do earlier in the interview process. Are they someone who wants to learn? Show us how they learn outside of work. You know, it's so important if you've got an organization that, I think the leader of the organization, the CEO, whatever, they need to have their DNA in it. They need to have their core values, their DNA. It needs to be coming through the spine of the business, because if that's not there, that person's constantly frustrated, which means that then falls down through the organization. Trying to please everybody doesn't work either. it really doesn't work. Helping everybody to see their talents, their strengths is a big thing. Helping them to know where they're at against those expectations in the self-appraisals and feedback is really important. And ultimately trying to build great teams. You know, I think there's a lot of talk in the property industry about being self-employed and how much money you're going to earn, and you can pick your kids up and you can do all these different things, which to the right person, that's the right thing. But it probably isn't for 95% of the people out there, right? Running a business is it's a totally different animal to being an estate agent. It's a different job, building a business. It's a totally different job. You're working on totally different responsibilities, areas of focus. Being an estate agent, self-employed, you're either doing it in a culture with all of the securities and the training and the development and all of the things that somebody can give you, and you know, you turn up, you show up, you haven't got those extra responsibilities. You go back and you do your job, or you go and do it yourself and earn all the commission. And do you know what? For the right people, that's the right thing. But I think we have to be really careful that actually being in the right culture, and there's some bloody good cultures and agency, which I'm envious of, and we're working towards that place. That's life-changing for people to work in those. And for the right people, that's the best place to be. They can see their career. They've got the opportunity to not feel scared about their growth or to make mistakes or whatever. And actually, they haven't got to worry about them not bringing in any money and having all of that fear kicking around, which can often happen in people that take that big leap. So, you know, I think... sorry to answer it in such a long way. There's a lot that I need to do to get better myself, if I'm being totally honest, which is why I'm hiring better people than me in my business right now.
I love that. I just love the rawness of that as well, you know. And one thing that you touched on that I felt was really potent was trust, because there's a lot of probably like estate agents who might be a bit smaller listening to this or growing. And this is also for myself, so it's a totally selfish question as well.
Yes.
As you grow, you delegate responsibilities. You know, maybe you were, you know, a really great valuer, then you started out your own estate agency, and now you're having to get somebody else to do the valuing for you, just as an example, right? With that and delegating that responsibility comes a lot of trust, and that can be difficult to let go of, right? What's your journey been like with that? Because you've got 9 businesses, right? At this point, if you don't have a good amount of trust, then you're going to be in a lot of pain a lot of the time. So I'm sure you've gone through a journey with that yourself.
Yeah, you do. And I think trust is something that is reciprocated. I think there's a lot of great people that really appreciate that freedom and trust. And if you only look at your own examples, when you've had a leader give you responsibility, the people that are going to grow your business and work with you are the kind of people that take that responsibility and they run with it. What happens most of the time is people are blocked. They're blocked because what the person in charge of them is saying is, I don't really trust you to go and get the results. I don't trust you to deliver. You got to get out of the people's way. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And, you know, for me, getting out of people's way is if I want to achieve what I want to achieve and I want to be where I want to be, then you need to accept the fact that people are going to need to be given the responsibility and the trust. When I first started the business, in the first year, I hired a guy just after the first year called Ollie, who's still with me now. And he came in as someone that I was going to train. He'd been doing the job for a long time, but he'd been totally conditioned to do it in a particular way, which was I've got to go out and win the instruction. I've got to go out and win the instruction. You know, it's all about numbers. It's all about numbers. And actually, what he brought with him was a great work ethic. He brought with him a really, 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 really great mindset in terms of, you know, he really thought he could do it and so on and so forth. But we totally needed to change his approach. And as we had changed his approach, he developed more trust with his clients. In other words, you know, you can make a sale and earn a commission, or you make a friend and you earn a fortune. That was the thing that I kept bantering on at him. You know, people don't use you because of the fee. They don't use you because of the price you've put on the house. They use you because of you, right? And they trust you. It's very difficult to lose an instruction if you've won trust. So I kept talking about, and gradually over time, he really picked up the mantle. So I went from listing 100% to listing 75% to listing 50% to listing 25%. And gradually 2 years down the line, I was out to like 10 or 15% of the valuations. And in 4 or 5 years down the line, building other businesses. So it took me 4 or 5 years to really get business number one to a place where it could allow me to do that. Then for 4 or 5 years, I've let business number one probably slip. And what I mean by that is that standards need to be a lot higher in there than they've been, you know, and we need to get some of the processes really clear. We need to get the people on the right track. And that's what we've done in the last 6 months. We've brought in a new manager to work alongside Ollie, and actually things are moving in a really good direction. Now, we've been the market leader throughout the whole thing. But that's a danger being market leader. The danger of being market leaders, you think everything's okay. It's not okay. Listen to your clients and then watch the culture. Listen and watch the culture. What's the dialogue? What's going on in there? You know, unfortunately, we've grown some other businesses and they're at that really great point 2 or 3 years in where they're doing really well. And they've got a tight-knit team. It's showing this team now that they need to up their game, right? So you kind of back round again doing version 2, which is where we're at now. And I just think, you know, trusting people is a pleasure. It's a really nice thing to do, even as a control freak like I am. You know, it's like, wow, you know, you're saying a hell of a lot, but what does that person need from me to make sure that they succeed? They need to know that they can fail. They need to know that they can make mistakes and they can tell me what those mistakes are. They need to tell me that they've lost some. Because at first I had moments with Ollie where I'd see something go on the market and go, oh, did we go to that one? Oh yeah, I lost that one on fees, you know. And there was a month where he lost like half a dozen in a space of a couple of weeks. And it was an Easter weekend, bank holiday Monday. So I called him up and said, come on, because he gave me another excuse, which was, it's all down to fees. It's down to fees. So he came round and said, bring the valuation chase book, which we had at the time. And we went through the chase book, Ebbs. I said, right, go back to the beginning of the year. So he was like back 3 or 4 months. I said, how did you get on at that one? Now it was highlighted green, which meant he got it on the market. He said, yeah, got that one on. I said, brilliant. Why did they come with you? Oh, because of X, Y, and Z. Was there other agents out there? Yes, there were. Were there cheaper agents out there? Yes, there were. Okay. So you won that one, did you? Yes, I did. Right. And we got to a process where he realized that actually, in the end of it, you can't have it both ways, you know? And he will talk to you about that day today. And at any point, he's never since then used fees as an excuse, because it is an excuse. It's a total excuse. It's an easy out. And actually, you know, going back to trust, I needed him to know that he could just tell me that he's not built a great relationship with that client. And then we can unpick that.
That's brilliant training, by the way. That's definitely gonna be a cliff. I love that. But I think actually, I'm glad you touched on fees, because it's always a pertinent topic, right? It's always coming up. When we speak to an estate agent, fees always come up. You know, we're at this percent. We want to push it up to here. In your view, because obviously this is something that you've had loads of experience with, how do you? I'd actually be really curious to know, how do you set your fees? What is the actual process behind deciding what your fee is?
It's a great question. I think it's one we probably need to revisit. You know, I think what I'm learning about building a business is that you shouldn't leave your, you know, we left the first business kind of because it was number one. It's doing all of this. Just leave it. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we set the fee at 1.5%. Most of the agents in the town were between 1 and 1.5%. I wanted to be the one that charged the most. Why? Because I believe that I'm the best at the job. Now, telling the client that is another thing. You have to demonstrate it. But, you know, now they're all under 1% and we're averaging probably 1.4 in that region. I think we need to be pushing that up and listing less if we need to. Now, I haven't said that to him yet, so we better not go too far into this clip. But, you know, what you charge is what you feel you're worth. So you talk about self-worth. Self-worth is your net worth. So if you're an entrepreneur, a business leader, there's not many that I know that have got a high net worth, and yet their self-worth's down on the ground. You know, you one doesn't come without the other. You might get the odd fluke, but one doesn't come with the other. So you've got to work on your self-worth to build your net worth. And how you do that is from all the principles that we've shared and hundreds of others. Your fees are the same, right? I know I would pay an agent 2% to sell my house, 100%. And I could look at any vendor in the eye and I'd say the same. Because I believe that the greatest agents, they work for you. They negotiate for you. They demonstrate a difference. And if you're only paying them on the result, which is at the end of the transaction, the vendor is in the stronger position. They're the ones, oh, Jude, bless him. Look, he's on. I'm doing a video, my little man. Popcorn. Got 3 kids. You might have to delete that bit, but anyway.
We'll cut that bit out. That was brilliant.
Gold. But yeah, just do a little blur out. It'll be funny. But the point is, you know, a lot of people think they need to charge this or they think they need to charge that. What do you believe you're worth and why? You know, what do your clients feel your value is? What do the clients really need for them, not for you? And how would they value it? You know, so, you know, you've got to really kind of reverse engineer like you do with marketing. You have to go to the end result and go, right, okay, if I'm going to charge 2%, right, okay, great, that's great. Yes, everyone's going to say that's twice the price. Okay, but if the question to that vendor is, at what point would you be happy to pay 2%? What would it need to look like? Let's just say you would be, right? What would need to happen? What would I need to do? That's the question to ask a client. And if the client says, well, do you know what? I need to make sure that you work on my behalf and that you call me every week and that every viewing that you do, you update me. And when I get an offer, you're working on my behalf and you're negotiating and da-da-da-da-da. And they're going to come up with stuff. The fact is they don't pay you it until they're happy with the process and the end of the situation. So, you know, estate agencies like nothing else. You're doing it, you're devaluing it, aren't you? In so many areas by saying, we will charge you 1%, or if you ask nicely, I'll negotiate down to 0.75. That, no way, right? It's the same with coaching. You know, you can give it away for free and everything else, but what are you telling your client? In my opinion, if you don't think you're worth it, the client won't do the work. If you make it expensive, and I mean that as in expensive as in cost, but their investment, they can see a return, and a huge return at that, by what you're coaching them, they'll pay the money and they'll do the work. And, you know, clients are no different. You'll be the only agent, Ebbs, that actually says to a client, well, if you were to pay me twice as much as the other agent that you've just talked about, what would I need to do to work with you? Just what would I need to do? What would you need to see? How would it need to look? Just play with me on this, you know? And my God, if somebody asked me that question, I'd be thinking, this guy's going to work for me. He's working for me. And I think we negotiate badly as an industry. You know, we negotiate with a scarcity mindset. I'm going to lose the business. You don't lose anything, you learn. So if you decide that you trust somebody else to help you do the valuations because you want to get time back to work on the business, to grow it, whatever it looks like we said earlier, you've got to figure it out. You've got to figure it out. You've got to help that person realize that they don't ever lose a listing. They learn. You either win or you learn. And if you've got something to learn from, it's normally because you haven't built trust. And if you haven't built trust, because you haven't asked the right questions, you haven't understood their needs, and they don't feel that you're the right person to get them to their outcome. Are you telling me if someone thinks and believes that you've agreed the price strategy that needs to go on, and you've seen the route from here to here to here to here to get there, and they feel confident that you're the right person to do it, and you've got trust, you've got credibility and respect, and you ask that question, you know, come on, right? Oh, come on, can you do it for a bit less? Absolutely no. Do you want me to chop down the price of your house? Do you want me to give your house away? You're telling me on one hand you want to use me because you can see I'm going to drive up the value, and now you're telling me you want me to drive down my value. You know, it's practice. Here's the difference. You get 100 agents and you go to them, right, tell me what your fees are. You'll know that 90 of them will crumble. They'll crumble in front of you because they don't train. They practice on the public. They need to practice in private. Have these conversations that we're having now. It's taking less than 10 minutes to talk about fees, right? How much more confident are you now than 10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
They don't bother. Why? Because they're fucking lazy, right? They're not professionals. They are chancers, takers. I'm going out because I want to win the instruction, because I get the validation, because I want to win. It's all about me. Don't be a twat, right? Go out there. I want you to know why the client needs to move, what they need to do to move. It could be that they need to spend the next 2 weeks decorating the house if they want to get that price, whatever it takes. Here's my lovely wife. Just say hello to Ebbs.
Hello.
Hello.
Pleasure to meet you.
She's the secret of our success, aren't you?
Oh, that's nice to know.
Right.
The support. Someone needs to do it.
Actually, Melissa introduced me to Tony Robbins for Ebbs, for your benefit.
Yes.
Oh, amazing.
So Ebbs doing a podcast, so we probably shouldn't be doing this right now, but this man is interested in doing the whole thing. He's done the Unleash the Power with him.
Oh,
So there
okay.
you go.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. And by the way, what was my mindset like 15 years ago?
Very, very different.
There you go.
Lazy, unmotivated. Didn't know anything about nutrition or
Yeah.
anything.
You said your bit now.
We're keeping that one all in.
Yeah, keep it in.
Oh.
Keep it in. See you in a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the situation, professionals practice. You don't get a Premier League team and go, right, we're playing Man City at the weekend. Right, I'll see you an hour before the game. Honestly, there's a lot of great people in our industry that have got great advice, great training. There's some of the best training that our industry needs. It's in the industry now. Hire those trainers, get them into your teams, teach your people to get to the strengths that are required to get you out there, to get to your goals. If it's increasing fees, you need to train hard, right? Throw the objections around, get into a room, be uncomfortable, because it's only when you're uncomfortable that you break through. And unfortunately, most people want to be nice and comfy, and that's why they'll say, yeah, okay, I'll drop the fees. No, yeah, come on, that's not what it's about.
I love how us talking about self-worth at the beginning has led through nicely all the way to estate agency fees, right? And what people actually charge. And I'm really glad I asked you that question, because I think that answer was so key, because for a lot of estate agents, how do you choose your fees? Well, all my competitors charge this, so I'm going to charge this. And actually it's nothing to do with you as the person, what's going on internally, what you believe your worth is. And I think that's just a beautiful, beautiful reframe and shift. So
if you want to look, there's a guy called Ian Storey at Stories. I love the guy. I think his marketing is off the scale. I think he's one of the agents that approached me a few years back, and we just talked offline in terms of he just messaged me about a few things that I've done in the community and stuff. But I could just see from his questions that he was going to be a great agent. I've done no work with him. I'm not coached him or trained him or done anything like that. What he's done is he set his stall out. He knew, he visioned what he was going to be as an agent, and he believes in himself. If you believe in yourself, guess what your clients do? If you want to sit there and wobble when the question's asked, your clients have got you. And they'll start to doubt you. The moment you say, yes, I'm going to come down, is the moment that you've lost the business. And you might think you've got it there and then, but what about you lose your business? You've got to there's a thing, I can't remember his name now, but there's a guy who says, never split the difference or something, Chris something.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase.
I've only listened to a bit, and I probably need to listen to the whole thing, but I think I get the gist of it. What are you saying to somebody when you start doing that? Now, if you don't believe you're worth what you're saying, that's your problem. And you need to build value, because in the absence of value, it's about cost.
And the client will also feel that. If you're charging, say you hear this and you say, right, I'm going to go and charge 2%. Well, that's great, but do you actually believe you're worth 2%? Can you demonstrate you are worth 2%? And if you're not, then you're not even going to get to the objections, because the client's going to feel that in you, that you're just kind of you've just plucked this number out of the air. So that work goes into it to achieve that, right?
You know, if you've said to a client, I'll give you 2% if we don't sell your house in 16 weeks for this price, you're worth 2%. So there is a way, right? And it's how you find that way, and then you build a service, a charter, something that you know that can be delivered, so your word doesn't become bullshit. It's this is my service, this is how it's going to look, this is the plan. And by the way, you know, you have an outcome with a vendor. Doesn't matter what vendor says to you. Oh, yeah, no, I don't know. I haven't been looking at the price. I don't know my price. Don't know the house, the value of my own house. Bollocks. They all know their value. They all know what they want. They're not stupid. You only have to go online, spend 10 minutes doing it. So the valuation piece is about a conversation around their needs, their timeframes, because that will dictate the way you set the price, right? So when you've set the price and they've told you the price to set, you go, tick, we've done that part together, you know, and rather than, oh, I think it could be 400. I think we should try at 400. Don't be an idiot. Don't ever tell them that, right? First of all, how long do you want this process to take? What's your outcome here? Do you want us to get the best price, the very best price that there is in the marketplace? For us to do that, selling it before it's hit the market isn't getting you the best price. You know, I'm seeing at the moment, everyone's getting a bit excited because it's, you know, you saw my son there stand naked at the door a minute ago. I reckon he could sell a house today. That's how easy selling a house is right now. Getting the best price. That's the bit you're paying an agent for right now. Getting the best buyer and the best price. That's when you know you've got the best agent. You know, that's when you know that they haven't just settled in. They haven't just settled in. They know the vendor's going to take 320. Well, I've got them 320. I've got that price. No, no, no. The great agents, they make sure the buyer is paying their best price and the buyer thinks they're getting a deal, right? The vendor gets more than they're expected because they've had those expectations managed from the off. That's when you've got happy clients. That's when you can call yourself a great agent. And by the way, that agent's worth 2%, in my opinion. And that's where the market will end up. You'll end up with a third of agents to start to re-believe that there's value in agency again. You'll have the usual idiots that think that you can sell something for nothing. And one thing that crap salespeople do really well is they sell cheap, they sell low value. I'm not being funny. Assets, houses, no bigger asset for most people. That's all you've got, right? You want to put it in the hands of a professional? Fantastic. That's what it's going to be. If you want to put it in the hands of this clown, that's what it could be, right? You know, it's like a scalpel, isn't it, right? In the hands of a professional, you get the job done. In the hands of an amateur, it can do a lot of damage, right? The same. That's your house price, 400,000. You don't go down the street and go, do you know what? He's got a nice suit, or he's got a nice hoodie on, or whatever it might look like. I'm going to give him the business because he's telling me it's 0.5%. Don't be so daft, right? That's a lot of money. You've got to bring people with you on the journey of it's a skill, right? When you're talking about someone's asset, talk about their asset, talk about the value of their asset, and that if they had that money on the table right now, would they want someone to take that off the table like they're taking their fees off the table? That is confidence, Ebbs.
That scalpel analogy, take that onto your market appraisal next time you go.
That's Tim Grover, right? Tim Grover talks about something else. He's the guy coached Michael Jordan. So if you want to read a great book, Relentless is one for winners, right? If you're a bit, you know, if you're not into that kind of mentality, then it's probably not the book for you. But if you are about driven, getting better, pushing yourself to limits, Relentless is a great book. Tim Grover.
Love that. I can't believe we're coming up to an hour already. This has literally gone by.
This has been great fun.
I want to wrap up with a few fun questions for you. Okay. First one I got for you right now. What is one of your biggest pet peeves within a estate agency?
Oh, I must admit, there's a little bit of digging and around. There's a lot of judgment kicking around. Just things like dress code. In my opinion, I've never ever found talking about the competition to be professional. So that's my fresh one for this week. You know, don't dig out the competition because they look like they've got a waistcoat and a nice suit, or they haven't, or they've got a hoodie. You know, if they want to wear a hoodie, wear a hoodie. If you want to wear shorts, wear shorts. If you want to wear a suit, wear a suit. I'm not going to, why would I want that to go through my mind? Why would I give two craps about what other people do or wear? If you're comfortable, you're probably going to be building a better relationship. So whatever, you know, I say comfortable enough to feel, you know, relaxed, but smart enough, in my opinion, to look professional. But, you know, I'm not one for, you know, strict dress codes, but I just think you just need to, some of that stuff's just, it just strikes me as a bit desperate.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, if you're spending time talking about your competition, that kind of says a lot, really, about about yourself.
For me, I just don't. That doesn't. I just think, what, you know, like someone's trying to oversell something, right? It's that sort of feeling you get. Yeah. Don't. The moment you start trying to oversell your service because you haven't done a great job building relationships, it's that sort of point.
It's trying a bit too hard, isn't it? You can feel that. You can get a sense of that. It feels a little bit icky, doesn't it?
Totally key. It's, you know, all right, there's just do your thing. Don't worry about anybody else. Do what you want to do. Do it really well. Do it to how you see it and believe it. And the right people will come with you. You don't have to criticize everybody else in the process. We've already got enough of that going on in our country as it is.
Yeah.
Don't need to do it in our industry, which I believe, by the way, our industry has come on leaps and bounds in the 25 years that I've been in it. I've never seen such sharing, caring, high standards, people that are doing it for the right reasons, like I can see today. And people like yourself and so many great people. They're so watchable and so learnable. And I think we're in a really good place in the industry. I just think we just need to tidy a few things up. So that's my only one, really.
Love that. All right. So next one I got for you. When you look back at your life, your career, whatever it might be, what is one of your favorite failures? And I put failures in inverted quotes because there's no such thing, at least that's my belief. But what is one of your favorite failures that led to a later success?
It's a really interesting one. I had a partnership with a lady called Joanne, who I've got so much time for still. We put our two lettings businesses together and it just didn't work out. You know what? She's at a different leadership point in her career. She wanted to do it a certain way. I wanted to do it my way. Two strong personalities. Not one argument in 2.5 years. But it got to this time last year, probably pretty much this time last year. And I said, is this what you want? You know? And it wasn't. And it wasn't what I wanted. You know, the outcome was a difficult conversation that just needed to be had. And it was a great conversation, which allowed us to go our separate ways. She's happy. She's doing her thing. I'm happy. I don't feel that, you know, when you're going to have to go and talk to someone, it feels like you're trying to convince them to come on a journey that's not right for them. And actually, that was really good. And I think that for me was a failure because it's a lot to put two lettings businesses together and then to unpick it 2.5 years later, not just from an emotional standpoint, and that you've got people in those teams that it's unsettling for, and it really was. And you know, all of the people I care about, and whether they believe it or not, I never want to see anyone lose a job or anything like that. And we were quite fortunate in how it all worked out in the end, and I think it's worked out for the best for everybody from what I can see. But it's led me to know who should I be working with going forward. So you talk about values and vision. If your values and visions are too different, it ain't going to work. It's like a relationship, isn't it? And one thing Joanne and I always had was a real honesty and transparency with each other. And I think it made those conversations that sound really difficult, really simple. Because there was never any hiding places. We never, you know, blamed each other. It wasn't like that. But that was, you know, that fundamentally is a failure as such. But it's taught me that we're getting everything else right now, and actually we're building a really cool culture, and everyone feels like they're joining it, and not everyone, but you know, the majority are coming with us on this journey. So that's what I'm really glad about.
Thank you for your just like honesty and transparency on that, because actually there's so many learning points in that, and I really believe being honest and being vulnerable like that is one of the truest acts of courage. And that, that's a real characteristic of a leader. So I just want to thank you for sharing that. I actually find that really inspiring to be able to just say, the real answer,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, she'd tell you the same. She's got a strong Irish accent. She's a straight shooter, Joanne, and I miss her. I miss her. I miss her as a person. But I'm glad that we're both where we are, and I think for me, that feels better than working together when it's not right. And you know what? We both needed to do it. She needed to do it. I needed to do it, and it's worked out better for both.
And you can reconvene, and I'm sure she can drink you under the table, going for a drink.
Actually, it's weird because I think we had a walk and stuff. We had a catch up after it, but we haven't quite much messaged each other a few months back. But she's one of those people that I wouldn't want to lose touch with. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think from a distance, I'm seeing what she's doing, and she probably does the same back. And I think there's a total mutual respect to our relationship. And a lot of people have opinions on people that and I always judge people and take people as I find them. I can only comment on how I find someone, and I wouldn't hear a bad word against her.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question for you to wrap up. We're going to project many, many years into the future. Like we said, you're moving into the second half. You might know where this is going. It's your last day with us on the planet. All of your ambitions have been achieved, all your businesses, your family, your loved ones. But you can't leave anything behind tangible, nothing physical, with everybody you care about. But you can leave them with one piece of advice or one piece of wisdom or something. What would you leave behind?
Oh man, that's a really big question. What's coming through me at the moment is about being yourself, and that's a constant discovery. It's not I'm here now, I've arrived. It's you constantly work on that. That's called progress. That's about finding out who you really are by doing things that you're uncomfortable with at times, and the things that you just light you up. I'm doing passion projects. I want to do an event, a live music event with, I want to start doing things that really light me up, because I feel like I'm at that point where, I've done a few things in my younger years, and I just look back at those times and think, wow, they were great fun. I really enjoyed that. One of my dreams is to put on a festival. I'd love to do that. And to do those things, you've got to be yourself. You've got to, I think today, Ebbs, things are different now. Years ago, 20, 30 years ago, when you saw someone who was successful and had a lot of money and everything else, there was a respect for that person. But you weren't overly concerned about how they got there. Now, I think people care about how you get there, and getting there the right way for me is about, seeing people succeed around me, seeing people happy around me, seeing people achieve the things that they want to achieve in their lives. I'd like to think I don't let anyone down in terms of giving them my thoughts over the years. I'd like to think that anyone who's worked with me will know that I've shared how I feel, what I think with them, not for any other reason than to help them. That will always be my intention, is to help people. It doesn't always get you the right response, and for that I've had to get over the fact that you won't necessarily be liked for being honest. But be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. That is my piece of advice.
Wow, that's a powerful one. And firstly, festival idea, love that. What kind of, I've got to ask, because I'd be remiss if I didn't. What kind of festival would you put on? Tell me more about it.
First of all, I'm going to do some live music. So I've got a friend who was in a big band in the 90s, and we're talking about, I can't get the front man for it because it'll cost too much money, but his band are like mega talented. I mean, they've supported Robbie Williams and all loads of, they've been the band for many sessions and big names. So I want them to be the house band. I want to get some guest artists in, and we just have this lovely vibe, a couple of 100 people, start with that and start rolling it every month, just get a bit of a following and then see where it goes, And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, I watch like my wife, I'll have a gin and tonic on a Friday, a glass of wine. I'm watching YouTube videos of live concerts, people doing what they do best. I'm in awe of musicians, in absolute awe of musicians. I just think creativity and arts they should be at the top, not at the bottom of our curriculum. You know, we need people to be working on their self-art. Everyone's an artist in their own right. Bring people's best out of them, right? That's what we need to be doing, and we need to celebrate arts. And one of the things that you really pick up in life is a lot of these guys that are super talented. Albeit, I've got a friend who went fishing with last week. He's an artist, most talented artist. Doesn't believe in himself. Does not believe in himself. He's so good. I've bought 13, 14 pictures off him over the years. I've known him all my life, pretty much. The guy is an incredible talent. And it doesn't matter how many times I tell him, he's got to be the one that works on that. One day I'd love him to fulfill his dreams. And these guys, I'm talking mega talented musicians. Most of the income's dominated these days by the labels and things like that. And it's just a crazy world out there. I'd love one day to see artists get what they deserve, creatives to get what they deserve, and I think maybe one thing that we've all learned in the last 12 months is that we need more of that and less of the news.
Yeah. And as someone who has a great appreciation for a lot of different forms of art, festivals being right up there, I'll be at all of them. I just want to say that I recognize you, mate, as an artist who chooses to express themselves through entrepreneurship and through helping other people. And that in itself is an art, and I can see that, and the people around you, I'm sure, can see that and feel that as well.
Really nice of you to say, man. And when you talk like that, what goes through my mind is the people, and this is the diversion thoughts. You have to divert the people that probably haven't appreciated my honesty over the years. And actually, I've only done it because I wanted to help them genuinely, and I've always been respectful of that process. But you're right. Being an entrepreneur is an art. We're all artists. You're creative. It's a thing that we should celebrate, and that's the magic. There's a great TED talk by a guy called Sir Ken Robinson. Watch it if you haven't.
I'll check it out.
Schools kill creativity? It is incredible. It makes you really believe that we are not on the right track with our curriculum. And it's not a knock at teachers, because I think teachers have got a hell of a job. If you talk about KPIs, flipping heck, they've got to work to KPIs for kids. I mean, have a word. We should be teaching people to believe in themselves, to be themselves, and to be their best selves, not to freaking make them scared of turning up and doing exams and stuff. It's just a crime, the way we're nurturing our children.
Yeah, I agree. Someone who went through that, it was all driven by fear. Getting those results was all driven by fear. And actually, that reframe could easily be driven by inspiration, driven by love, driven by joy.
Totally. Yeah. And, fear, what is fear? There's another subject for another day. But for God's sake, we should be, yes, you should do things you fear. You should break through your fears and so on and so forth, because most of them aren't real. But, people lack, the majority of kids leave school and they lack self-worth, self-confidence, self-belief. For F's sake, that is just a criminal offence. They spend tens of thousands of hours being taught to think and feel things that they shouldn't need to think and feel about. Wrong. It's just wrong. And we're sending them off there. It's crazy. But there you go. We are where we are. Let's change it, eh?
Let's do it. Yeah. I mean, this is it, right? We can all do this by doing our part, right? This is us doing our part.
Hang on. There's a look out for this.
The side hustle stories told by people who have taken their passion and energy to drive them forward to succeed. Ooh.
So that, I've already done half a dozen interviews with people that have made successes of their lives through challenges and adversity. And, the side hustle, the vision for the side hustle is to get self-education to the top of the curriculum, right? How you do it is just by interviewing people that have worked on their side hustle, knowing that education is what it is, but I want to be a musician, or I want to be a comedian, or I want to be a chef, or I want to be a what, you know, or creative marketing. But let's give people inspiration outside of school, because they ain't getting it in school at the moment. And that's not being disrespectful. It's just being truthful.
Amen. And Matt, I just want to really thank you for your time and your energy, for everything you've shared. I feel like, to be honest, we probably could go on for about 7 hours.
But listen, it's been great, and I love what you're doing. Keep up the great work. People don't realise how much goes into doing these things as well, and you know, well done to you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
You too.